So my name is Andrew Brackmann, Pastor Andrew Brackmann. I'm the associate pastor at Valley View Chapel in Long Valley, about 35 minutes south of here. So I am glad to be with you this morning, and it's my delight. Thank you so much, guys, for leading, and love it, love it. So you can jump ahead now if you want to find Psalm 131 in your Bible. Psalm 131, it's like right in the middle. But think with me about this question. What do you do when you don't know what to do? What do you do when you don't know what to do at work? Maybe your job that you've had for a long time or short time isn't working out. It's not paying, it's too far, it's not good for the family, the coworkers, and you aren't gelling. What do you do in that kind of situation when you don't know what to do? Or, looking ahead in a few weeks, you're anticipating a Christmas that's not going to be so merry because of loss you've encountered, because of financial difficulty, because of relationship things. What do you do when you don't know what to do? What do you do as a church, right? You're looking for a pastor. What do you do when you don't know what to do? Because the thing is, we all do something, and it's usually not that helpful. We try to fix it, we try to think more, we try to do more, act more, and usually things fall apart more as we get involved more in our problems. So what do you do, right? What do you do when you don't know what to do? Maybe you're right there now. From what I understand, anxiety is the most reported mental health issue in America today. A lot of people struggling with what to do. And maybe you're there, right there this morning. So what do you do? Well, there was a king in ancient Israel who asked and answered this question because he wrestled with it. King David. And he wrote this little psalm, this little song to help himself and to help his people wrestle through those times when you just don't know what to do. Psalm 131. First, he starts out by saying what he doesn't do when he doesn't know what to do. And that's what he says in the first verse, Psalm 131:1. Lord, my heart is not proud. My eyes are not haughty. So David's observation is that when we don't know what to do, sometimes we try to tackle our problems ourselves. We go to pride. That's this internal sense that we can handle this on our own. Or we become haughty, he says, which is really another way of saying that we pretend to have things together. We pretend to know what we're doing. Those two words, pride, haughtiness, they have this sense in the original language of a height, of elevation, of something that's high up, which kind of fits, right? David is stressed, or he knows stress. He's been asking this question, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And it kind of leads him in a spiral up. His problems are up there. They feel like they're overwhelming over him. And he says, my first inclination, and I bet readers, hearers, that your first inclination is to go after him and to go up there with him and to get all energized or really de-energized because you just keep getting frustrated with not knowing what to do when you don't know what to do. And he's going up, 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 getting all stressed out. And this even the language of the psalm brings us up to this kind of frenzied, stressed out state. He says, I know that's what happens. You go to pride, you go to pretense. It doesn't work out too well when you go there. Sometimes we pretend, and we do a pretty good job of fooling ourselves that we have a handle on things. Yeah, I got this. Right? It's what you do on a first date. It's what you do at a job interview. It's what you do at a high school reunion or an office Christmas party. You look like you have it all together. You look like you know more, or you can do more, or you are more than you really are, right? David knew that about us. When we don't know what to do, sometimes our first step is towards pride. I got this. I can handle it. It's no biggie. Everybody's looking on, and it looks like you've got it all together because you're doing a really good job of pretending that you know what you're doing, even though you don't have a clue as to what to do. David knows that about us. Last year, I like to run, and for months, I had this like abdominal muscular pain, and it wasn't going away. I didn't know what to do about it. I kept thinking, I can just run through it. It'll go away. I'll take care of it. Well, it didn't, and I finally humbled myself, and I went to a physical therapist for the first time in my life. And when I got there, the doctor was, poking and prodding and asking me what the issues were. And I heard myself diminishing the pain that I had been feeling. That led me to go there. That led me to shell out money for this guy to help me through my issues that now I was saying I really didn't have. Does this hurt? No, it's not too bad. When you're running, does this happen? Well, no, I can run through it. But I was in the doctor's office because I didn't know what to do. Pride, pretense, right? That's where we go when we don't know what to do. We rely on ourselves. Our problems are right up there, and we're chasing after them. And that's where David goes next in this tiny little psalm, because he knows it about us. He knew that about him. Sometimes we chase after our problems more. And that's what he says in the second half of this verse, Psalm 131:1. The second verse says, I don't concern myself with matters too great or too awesome for me to grasp. He's saying, God, these issues, they come faster and they go higher than I ever can. And I'm not going to chase after them. That word, concern myself, has this sense of going after, of chasing, of pursuing. David just says, God, I know myself. I'm going to try to chase after these things more, but I'm not going there. God, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to pride. I'm not going to pretense. And I'm not going to pursue these issues wherever they'd take me. I'm not doing that. Now, what are David's great and awesome matters that he talks about? Right? I don't concern myself with matters too great or too awesome for me to grasp, he says. Well, what could have he been grasping for? What are these weighty matters? Think about his life. He's the youngest of 8, and he's kind of insignificant in his family. All his brothers have life and a future ahead of them. Some are military leaders. But David, they just chuck him out into the field. Take care of the sheep. What do you do in a situation like that, where you're supposed to be loved and valued, but you're treated as insignificant? David knew those questions. Then into his teenage years, he's selected as the next king of Israel, except it's put on hold for a long time. And he actually ends up working for the current king, who abuses him, even though David's like his music therapist. The guy's trying to kill him. And David's been promised, he's been selected by the prophet of God. He knows that he's going to be king one day, but not yet. So what do you do in those times? When you know something is yours, you've been given the opportunity, but not yet. Those are tough words. Not yet, right? What do you do when you're in those times? And then David, he and his wife lost their first child. What do you do when you're faced with overwhelming loss? And it's like the world falls out from underneath. And then one of his older sons rebels, tries to overthrow the whole kingdom. What do you do when you've been betrayed, when things that you trusted in and relied on turn against you? What do you do when you don't know what to do? And that's just David's personal life. He's king now. I believe he wrote this when he was king. He wrote it for his people to sing because he knew the issues that come with being human, and he knew their issues. So here he is, king. He's got all these mouths to feed, all these people to take care of. He's got a kingdom to run and lead and to fight for. Wow. And he doesn't have a clue sometimes as to what to do. He's got enemies on other sides trying to take him out, trying to take his people out. He's faced with great and weighty matters. And by the way, when he first becomes king, he's kind of handed a mess. His predecessor killed himself and gave David, well, didn't really give David. David inherits his kingdom that's shattered. Have you ever inherited someone else's problems and you don't know what to do? And maybe David wrote this near the end of his life, right? Maybe he was wondering how his family would fare, how his country would fare after he was gone. You ever wondered what life looks like if you were gone? Or you're thinking about retirement and issues that follow your healthier days? You don't know what to do. David's there. He's been there. And he knows that you're there and that I'm there. And he writes this little song to help us through it and to guide us through, to kind of right the ship. Because he knows you're going to go after your ego, after pride. You're going to pretend. You're going to pursue your issues more. He says, don't go there. Instead of going up after this stress, come down. That's where he tells us to go next. The second verse. He says, I've calmed and quieted myself like a weaned child who no longer cries for its mother's milk. Yeah, like a weaned child is my soul within me. You can almost hear David breathe this sigh of relief. As he's looking at his problems and they're escalating and it's de-energizing to think about it, he says, I'm not going there. God, I'm gonna snuggle up with you instead. He does the opposite of what he's inclined to do, of what you're inclined to do. From the overwhelming issues he faces, he calmly and quietly and humbly goes to God. Now, I have 4 kids. My wife and kids came today. So we've had a bunch of weaned children. Our youngest is 3 now. And I can tell you this, and you probably know this, weaned children don't need mommy to eat anymore. You know that because you come in to the kitchen in the morning and there's cereal spread all over, right? Or food's everywhere. They have no trouble, they do, but they don't think they do. They have no trouble feeding themselves. They don't need mommy for that anymore. They've been weaned. They don't rely on mommy to feed them. They're perfectly fine. These are very capable little human beings, right, that we're talking about. David compares his soul to that, to the weaned child. Why? Well, Think about toddlers that you've known, about weaned children. Maybe they're outside at the playground and they're playing and they step too close and the swing clocks them and down they go, or they fall off the slide, or they're running with so much enthusiasm and they fall and their knees are scraped up. What happens? Well, now they're bursting into tears and gasping, and who do they go for? They go for mommy. They run up to mommy sobbing, and mommy scoops them up and slaps a Band-Aid and fixes the problem right there? No, that's not what mommy does first. She doesn't tackle the problems. She gathers that little sobbing ball of joy and of pain into her arms and holds the kid. And the sobbing is fast, and then it slows, and then there's always that little last calm, right? And quieted. They didn't need mommy, but they needed mommy. David says, that's my soul. I could get all crazy and stressful and anxious. It's never works out. Instead, I'm going to go the opposite direction. I'm going to go up to my God, who I really do need. And he's going to calm and console. I'm going to get this sense of serenity and security from being with him. My problems, they're still there. I'm still bleeding. But, being with him makes things a whole lot better, a lot different. Like a calmed, quieted child to my soul. David had kids. He had seen that probably a dozen times. And he knew that when we ask the question, what do? We don't need a what answer. We need a who answer. So remember this little phrase. God is the who for your what to do. He's the who answer. You don't need more whats, more money, more steps, more things, more information. You don't need the whats. You need a who. And there's only one who's capable. God. God is the who for your what to do situations. Now this Psalm 131, is part of this little unit in the Psalms called the Psalms of Ascent, the Songs of Ascent. And these were little songs that the Israelites would sing or recite as they journeyed up to Jerusalem. Jerusalem was elevated, the highest point in their land, and so they were literally geographically going up to the temple in Jerusalem to worship. And as they did that, 3 times a year, by the way, by law, they were supposed to go 3 times a year. As they did that, they would sing these Psalms of Ascent that prepared them for worship. And that would remind them, like this one, of the issues of real life that they were facing. God wasn't unaware or disinterested in their real lives. He was saying, no, all of the real life that you're bring it with you as you come to meet me. So 3 times a year they're doing this, they're singing this. And David contributed, of course, to that tradition. The thing is, you and I are the greatest obstacles in our ascent to God. We get in our own way, right? And David's just been saying that. Our pride and ego, our pretentiousness, our pretending, I can take care of this, I got it all on my own. Or our effort, our trying to maximize our own contribution to our problems, which usually ends up just exacerbating things and making things worse. David knows that. He knows that about me and he knows that about you. Here's the funny thing. Going to God in our issues when we don't know what to do, that's not discounting the issues. It's not ignoring them. It's not belittling them. They're still there. It's not kind of like checking out and going on this mental vacation and leaving all this world of chaos behind you and then coming back and it's still there and you get right back into it. This isn't some kind of mental vacation. This is getting a right perspective on your issues, on your stresses, on your what-to-dos. That's what a good leader does. So as David tells his people, hey, you should do this too, he's not saying, just check out and ignore things. He's saying, really, your perspective's way off. You need to see things from a better angle. And almost the structure of the psalm tells us that's what he's doing. Remember I said it starts with these heightened words, these really high up, escalated words. Then David says, all your problems, they're up there, but God, he's a lot higher. So what you need to do, instead of going up after your problems, is lower yourself, be with God, and then you'll see that all of your issues that are over your head, they're actually under his feet. And you get a much higher perspective when you see things from the security and the relationship of being with him. And by the way, the byproduct of that is you're calmed and you're quiet. You're not all crazy with your issues. So how do you do that? How do you do that? Before we finish the little line of the psalm, here's a couple things to try to bring this home, right? First, pay attention to your self-talk. The things that you tell yourself and say to yourself or that you hear yourself saying. Pay attention to those things, especially when you're stressed out. And maybe you're right there right now. Like as I'm talking, you're just going through recounting all these issues that you've got to deal with when you get home. Pay attention to your self-talk. And here's the specific thing I want you to focus on. Who or what are you trusting in? When you're faced with stress, who or what are you trusting in? You or God or someone else? Because I promise you this, if you put your trust in something that isn't worthy of it, you will get more stressed out. If you lean all your weight on something that can't hold you up, you're going to fall and it's going to hurt and your stress is going to climb higher. If you trust in anything that can't bear the weight of your trust, things are going to fall apart. So who or what are you trusting in? When you're stressed out, just ask yourself that question. Pay attention to your self-talk. Okay, Andrew, who am I trusting in now? What am I trusting in now? Is it worthy of my trust? And the second thing you could ask is, what or who is my companion right now? What am I keeping closest to my heart? Is it all my stresses and issues? Well, how's that going for you? Or is it something more capable of walking through those things with you? Is it someone? Remember, God is the who, not the what. He's the who for your what do I do times. So pay attention to those things. What am I trusting in? What's my companion? And then another thing that I do, that I practice, I call it, and others call it a breath prayer. You just need a little phrase when you're stressed. You don't need to write essay prayers. You don't need to pray essay prayers. What we need most is these deep, penetrating little, oh God, prayers, right? For me, it's, God, you got this. You got this. God, I'm going to worry about my problems. No, you got this. You got this. That's what I say. Just a short little breath prayer. By the way, the psalm, it's like 30 words in Hebrew. It's tiny. I bet on a big breath, you could get through the whole thing. I think there's a reason David made it so short, because our problems get us crazy and get us into bigger issues of stress. And he's like, yeah, you just need this little nugget. That's what you really need. And then finally, you could even journal through the issues. As you gain a better perspective on things from God's point of view, journal them. And then here's what I would do as a posture to actually incarnate this psalm and this activity. As you write down all your problems and stresses, what I would do is get down and hold it over your head and say, God, all these things are over my head, but they're under your feet. They're over me, but they're under you. You got this. Now here's what David does. Here's what he tells his people to do. Here's what he practices himself. He wraps up the psalm this way. O Israel, put your hope in the Lord, now and always. That's what you got to do. Oh, Israel. You can almost hear him sighing, right? Oh, Israel. I've been there, guys. I know where you're at. Oh, guys. Put your hope in the Lord right now and tomorrow, and when the issues get worse, and when things fall apart, or when things get better. Always put your hope in the Lord. David sings this song as one from that position of security and of calm. He's not telling this crazy nation that's chasing its own tail and chasing it up into higher problems. He's not saying, oh, guys, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? No, he's looking out at a world that's full of disaster from this place with his Abba, with his God, who's been there, who he's trusted in. And he's there, calmed and quieted. And he's got a world of problems in his own life too. And he says, guys, what are you doing? What are you doing? Hold up. Don't keep getting arrogant and proud and egotistical. Don't keep pretending. Don't pursue your problems more. Come here for a minute. Oh, Israel, come. Put your hope in the Lord. He says it from a place of experience himself. He says to hope, right? The word hope, half the time in the Old Testament is translated waiting. Wait on the Lord. Hope in the Lord, wait in the Lord. Lord, it's the same thing. Again, it's not just some kind of a pipe dream or a check out of your issues. It's a check in to what God's doing, and it's saying, okay, God, on your time, in your way, you got this. I'm going to stick with you. I don't know what you're up to, but I know I can't solve it. You got this. I'm going to count myself with you. I'm going to wait on the Lord through this, and that's what hope is. I love how this psalm teaches its lesson through its structure, like I said, right? It starts in the heights of stress, it comes down to God, and then it sees that God is much higher than all these problems anyway. In his most difficult time, as he looked ahead to torture, to betrayal, to abandonment, and to undeserved brutal punishment, Jesus knew what it was like to have a soul in distress. He said it in Matthew 26:38. He says, my soul is overwhelmed within me to the point of death. And Jesus, as a kid, he grew up in a devout Jewish family who made those pilgrimages to Jerusalem 3 times a year. We know that from the Gospels accounts. He would have sang these songs of ascent over and over. He would have had them memorized, especially these short little ones, right? Everybody memorizes Jesus wept, first Bible verse or something. We memorize the short ones. As a kid, I bet Psalm 131 was one that he had memorized. He's often going to the temple. And now, as he literally is faced with the most distressing situation any human could ever know, instead of going up as he makes his journey into Jerusalem, in those final days of his life, he sings these songs. Now he's looking to a Jerusalem that he's not going to the temple to worship. He's going up that mount to die, and he knows it. And so he brings to mind, he calms and quiets his soul by approaching his mission full of distress, full of anxiety that's not bound in sin, but just bound in the anticipation of horrible things that are going to happen. And he looks up at his problems that are up on top of that hill in Jerusalem, and instead of going up, he pauses and he goes down a little. He goes down to this Garden of Gethsemane. It's on the bottom of the Mount of Olives. So even geographically, he kind of follows the movement of this song. He goes down, and what does he do? He gets with his Father. Now, if you were to go home today, if you were to read Psalm 130 and 131, we're talking about 131 here, but if you read Psalm 130 and 131 side by side with Matthew 26, 36 to 38, the Garden of Gethsemane story, you would see a bunch of parallels. There's waiting on the Lord, there's watching, there's sleeping, there's redemption of sin, there's forgiveness of sin, there's the idea of Israel being redeemed. All these things parallel. And remember, Jesus has made this journey countless times in his life, and this is going to be his last time. And he meets the most stressful situation in his life by doing just what Psalm 131 says. He goes down to the garden and he prays. And what does he pray? He says, God, not my will, but yours. I'm waiting on you. You got this. It's not what my body wants, but my heart wants you. Not my will, but yours. He trusts in one who is worthy of his trust. And from that, then he stands up and he meets the most horrific thing that could happen to a human being with the strength of being with his Father. And he meets it head on. He realized at the height of what lay ahead of him, he didn't meet alone. He met with his God. God was the who for his what do I do now time. Is that where you are? Right? We all ask that question a lot. What do I do, God? What do I do? What do we do as a church? What do we do as a family? What do I do with my job, with my kids, with my neighbors, with my friends? What do I do? Becoming proud isn't going to work. You know that. You have failed yourself countless times, haven't you? When you've tried to solve your problems, when you tried to gather more information or do something or just try this one more thing. Wait, no, I could do a couple more things, a couple more angles. Hasn't worked out, has it? You need one who's worthy of your trust. Trust in the one who's there. God is the who, what. You're not alone. You're not alone. That question, that feeling, well, that's plagued humanity forever. That's why we find little songs like this that we can hold on to. Can I pray for you? Father, Christmas has a way of bringing to mind a whole bunch of joys, but also a whole bunch of worries. It has a way of emphasizing the best things and the worst things that we've been through. Something about the anticipation of it, of being around people that we love or not having the people around who we wish were there. It has a way of focusing on our pocketbook as everybody exchanges gifts and we think about what we can and can't afford. All these things come to our mind, Lord. It's crazy how Christmas, its roots were so simple and yet we've made it so complex and stressful. And Lord, I already heard a bunch mention that this has been a hard week in Sussex County. So Lord, you know what's going on. You know the stresses and anxieties that people are facing, the what to do questions that we're asking. Lord, it's our confession now that we are incapable of handling these things on our own. So in our humble spot of being defeated and weak people, we look to you who's strong and capable, and we say, God, we need you. We don't need more of ourselves. We need more of you. We know our problems aren't going to magically go away, but you face them with us, and that's where we want to be. That's the way we want to do this. So, Lord, we need you. We love you. We thank you that you offer all of yourself to us in all of our mess. Thank you that Christmas has a way of reminding us about that, too. Thank you, Jesus.